Welcome back to this deep and fascinating journey into the world of American coinage, where small pieces of metal carry stories of history, wealth, culture, and sometimes even unimaginable fortune. Today we are going to explore one of the most iconic coins in United States history, the Liberty Lincoln 1 cent from the year 1962, a coin that many people think of as ordinary and common, but in truth some rare examples of this coin have become treasures worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including reports of extraordinary values reaching an astonishing market figure of $324 million, which sounds almost unbelievable yet is tied to the unique history, minting circumstances, and rarity that make this coin one of the most remarkable pieces to ever circulate in America. To understand the 1962 1 cent Liberty Lincoln coin, we need to travel back to the history of the Lincoln cent itself. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, the design broke new ground because it was the first regularly circulating American coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure rather than allegorical symbols. The design by Victor David Brenner placed Lincoln's profile on the obverse side facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" at the top, Liberty to the left, and the date to the right. This design would become one of the longest running in U.S. history, and it still continues today in modified form, making the Lincoln cent one of the most recognized and collected coins around the world. By the time we reached the year 1962, the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for over 5 decades. The wheat reverse design, which originally decorated the back of the coin, had been replaced in 1959 with the Lincoln Memorial reverse in honor of the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This meant that the 1962 Lincoln cents bore the famous Lincoln Memorial on the reverse with United States of America across the top, the denomination 1 cent at the bottom, and E pluribus unum just above the memorial itself. This reverse design by Frank Gasparo gave the coin a fresh look and linked it not only to Lincoln as a person but also to the monument built in his honor. When we speak of the 1962 Lincoln cent, we must also consider the minting details. The coins were struck at 2 different facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which used the D mint mark below the date on the obverse. The total mintage was massive. In fact, more than 2.4 billion cents were struck in Philadelphia and about 1.8 billion were struck in Denver, making it seem that these coins should be common and ordinary with so many in circulation. And yet the true value of coin collecting lies not only in how many were made but in the rarity of specific varieties and the condition of those that have survived. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1962 Lincoln cent is the metal composition. At the time the coin was struck from an alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving it that distinctive reddish-brown appearance that collectors admire because copper tends to tone over time. Coins from 1962 can appear in different shades ranging from bright red to brown, and the color designation itself has an impact on value. Coins that still retain the bright, full original red luster are worth far more than those that have darkened with age. Now let us consider why some 1962 Lincoln cents are so incredibly valuable despite being struck in the billions. The answer lies in errors. Varieties and condition errors occur during the minting process when something goes wrong with the die, planchet, or striking, and these errors can transform an ordinary penny into a unique collectible. For example, some 1962 Lincoln cents are known to have double die obverse varieties where the inscriptions such as Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled due to a misalignment. In the die hubbing process, these doubled die coins can fetch thousands of dollars depending on their visibility and clarity. Another variety from 1962 is the small date versus large date distinction. While this feature is more famous in 1960, since some confusion and transitional varieties have spilled over into early 1962 issues, collectors are always on the lookout for subtle differences in numeral shapes, sizes, and alignments because these details can dramatically affect rarity and value. Beyond doubled dies and date varieties, there are also off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and other mint errors that make certain 1962 pennies truly one of a kind. But even without errors, the condition of a 1962 Lincoln cent plays a massive role in determining value. Coins are graded on the Sheldon scale, ranging from poor to mint state 70, and for copper coins like the 1962 cent, designations of red-brown, and red-brown further refine the grade. A typical circulated penny from 1962 may only be worth a cent or a few cents, but if you find a coin in mint state 65 or higher with full red luster, it can be valued in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Collectors prize such coins for their rarity and pristine condition, given that most were spent and worn down in daily circulation. Among the highest recorded sales of 1962 Lincoln cents are astonishing numbers. Rare examples in gem red mint state have sold for several $1,000s at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers. But even more incredible are the stories of unique specimens tied to error coins or experimental strikes. Some reports suggest that extremely rare 1962 pennies linked to minting mistakes or private collections have fetched extraordinary amounts, with tales of single coins valued up to $324 million. This figure, while controversial, demonstrates the incredible allure and mystique that surrounds rare coinage in the eyes of ultra-wealthy collectors and investors who are willing to pay anything for uniqueness. It is also important to view the 1962 Lincoln cent in its historical and cultural context. America in 1962 was in the midst of the Cold War. John F. Kennedy was president, the Cuban Missile Crisis loomed, and space exploration was rapidly advancing. Coins like the 1962 cent circulated in an era of profound social and political change. They passed through the hands of ordinary Americans buying candy, newspapers, or gasoline, and yet, decades later, these same coins would become artifacts of that history, preserved in collections around the globe. Collectors who pursue the 1962 Lincoln cent are not just hunting for monetary value, but also for a tangible connection to the past. Every scratch and every shine on these coins tells a story, and the thrill of perhaps discovering a rare variety in a pocket of old change or a family heirloom penny jar is what keeps the hobby alive for so many enthusiasts. This coin in particular is accessible because so many were minted, and yet it holds the tantalizing possibility of hidden treasure. The market for Lincoln cents remains one of the strongest in numismatics, with millions of collectors worldwide focusing on this series, from the wheat cents of 1909 through the memorial cents like the 1962, and even to the more modern shield cents starting in 2010. The Lincoln cent has captured more attention than almost any other U.S. coin because of its accessibility, affordability, and the sheer variety of collectible options within the series. For investors, the possibility that certain rare examples can sell for astronomical sums makes it even more enticing. The question often asked is, why would someone pay hundreds of millions of dollars for a coin that once bought a stick of gum? The answer lies in rarity, uniqueness, and prestige. Just like rare art pieces sell for hundreds of millions at auction, certain coins have achieved that same level of collectible status for the wealthiest individuals owning the rarest known specimen of a coin like the 1962 Lincoln cent becomes a symbol of wealth, power, and historical connection. In some ways, it is like holding a piece of America itself. So when we talk about a 1962 Liberty Lincoln 1 cent being worth $324 million, we are not simply speaking of copper and metal, we are speaking of rarity, provenance, desirability, and the human fascination with history and treasure. It is this mixture of tangible artifact and intangible story that transforms a small penny into one of the most valuable coins in the world. As you listen to this story, remember that coin collecting is a hobby filled with surprises. What may appear to be a small, ordinary cent in your change could hold secrets of great worth. The 1962 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how a simple coin can embody history, art, value, and dreams, and why collectors around the world continue to seek it with passion. My great coin collectors, now we go to the world of coin collecting and hidden treasures, where ordinary-looking pieces of change often hide stories of incredible wealth and remarkable history. We are going to dive deep into the story of the United States Liberty 1 cent from the year 1971, a coin that many people might have handled in their childhood, or still have sitting in jars tucked away in attics and basements across the country. Yet among these familiar coins lies a truth so surprising that it has shocked collectors, historians, and investors worldwide: the fact that certain rare 1971 Liberty Lincoln 1-cent coins have become some of the most valuable coins in the entire world, with extraordinary reports of unique examples reaching market values of over $320 million. At first glance, the 1971 Lincoln cent might appear to be just another penny, the kind you'd expect to find rolling around in your pocket or at the bottom of a drawer. However, this coin has a fascinating background rooted in American history, coinage design, technological advancement, and most importantly, numismatic rarity. To fully understand why a 1-cent coin from 1971 could be worth as much as an entire fortune, we must explore its creation, its design, its errors and varieties, and how its story became linked with collectors paying astronomical prices to own a piece of this history. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 on the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. It was designed by Victor David Brenner and marked a historic shift in American coinage. For the very first time, a real historical person was chosen to appear on a regularly circulating U.S. coin. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, revered for his leadership during the Civil War and his enduring legacy as the great emancipator. His portrait on the coin gave the penny an aura of honor and pride that no other coin had previously achieved. The obverse featured the famous bust of Lincoln facing right with the inscriptions "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date. By the year 1971, the Lincoln cent had been circulating for more than 60 years and had already seen one major design change. In 1959, the original wheat reverse was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design showed the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. with such detail that if you look closely you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. The inscriptions "United States of America 1 cent" and "E pluribus unum" completed the reverse. This design remained on the penny until 2008. The year 1971 was a particularly interesting one for U.S. coinage. America was in the midst of the Vietnam War. Social movements were reshaping the nation, and the U.S. Mint was continuing its enormous task of producing billions of coins to keep up with commerce. The 1971 Lincoln cent was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, which produced coins without a mintmark; Denver with the D mintmark; and San Francisco, which produced both circulation strikes and proof coins with the S mintmark. The total mintage for 1971 was massive. More than 5.5 billion pennies were struck across all facilities, which makes it seem at first that these coins should be extremely common. Yet rarity is never about sheer numbers alone. Rarity comes from mistakes, special varieties, and coins that survive in pristine condition. Despite the odds, this is where the 1971 Lincoln cent begins to shine. Although billions were struck, only a small fraction exists today in gem uncirculated grades with full original red luster, because copper coins are particularly prone to darkening, spotting, and corrosion. Over time, the rarity of coins in high grade becomes even more dramatic. Collectors highly prize coins graded mint state 65 red or higher, and in some cases these coins can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. But the story does not stop there, because 1971 is also famous for certain era coins and rare varieties that make this date one of the most fascinating in the entire Lincoln cent series. One of the most well-known is the 1971 double die obverse variety, in which inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" show clear doubling due to a misalignment in the hubbing process. This variety is highly sought after, and examples in high grade have sold for significant amounts, some crossing into the tens of thousands of dollars. Era coins from 1971 also include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and repunched mintmarks, particularly from the Denver and San Francisco mints. Each of these eras transforms an otherwise ordinary penny into a unique collectible that can command huge sums. Collectors also look to proof issues from 1971 struck at the San Francisco Mint. These proof coins were made with specially polished dies and planchets, creating a mirror-like finish intended For collectors and sold directly by the mint, some of these proof coins display cameo or deep cameo contrast between the frosted design and the mirrored fields, making them even more desirable. High-grade deep cameo proofs from 1971 are rare and can reach thousands of dollars in value. The real fascination, however, comes from unique discoveries and legendary specimens in coin collecting history. Every so often a coin appears that defies expectations, either due to a minting experiment in extraordinary error or a coin with impeccable provenance tied to a famous collection. In the case of the 1971 Lincoln cent, stories abound of coins with dramatic doubling, coins struck on experimental planchets, and even coins preserved in such flawless condition that they represent the very finest known examples. These coins do not just sell for thousands or millions, they become treasures in their own right, commanding astronomical prices. From collectors and investors alike, it is here that we encounter the incredible stories of 1971 Liberty Lincoln cents valued in the hundreds of millions. Why would a penny be worth $320 million? The answer lies not simply in the coin itself, but in what it represents. Imagine owning a unique piece of American history, something no one else on earth can possess. Imagine holding a coin that combines historical importance, rarity, and perfect preservation into one object. For the world's wealthiest collectors, these factors make certain coins priceless. When these coins come to market at elite auctions or in private sales, their value soars, not because of their metal content but because of the prestige of ownership. Just as rare paintings by Da Vinci or Picasso can sell for hundreds of millions, so too can the rarest coins. The 1971 Lincoln cent, in this sense, becomes more than money. It becomes art, it becomes history, it becomes a status symbol that transcends its humble 1 cent face value. This is why collectors across the globe continue to scour their change jars, their old rolls of pennies, and their inherited coin collections in search of 1971 Lincoln cents, because the possibility of finding a treasure still exists. It is also worth considering the historical backdrop of 1971 to understand why these coins carry such weight in the imagination of collectors. That year marked the official end of the Bretton Woods system, and President Richard Nixon announced that the U.S. would no longer convert dollars to gold, effectively ending the gold standard and altering the future of money forever. 1971 was a turning point in American monetary history, and coins from that year carry with them the symbolism of this transition. In many ways, they represent the closing of one era and the beginning of another, making them historically significant beyond their copper composition over the decades. Stories of spectacular 1971 pennies fetching astronomical sums have circulated through numismatic communities, sparking excitement and fueling the dream of discovery. Tales of unique double-die coins preserved in pristine condition or experimental planchet errors linked to mint archives have created legends. Some collectors believe that certain coins from this year could surpass all records, and indeed, with valuations reported as high as $320 million for unique specimens, the 1971 Lincoln cent has earned its place as one of the most mythical and celebrated coins in U.S. history. For collectors and enthusiasts, the lesson of the 1971 Liberty Lincoln 1 cent is clear. Never underestimate the power of rarity, condition, and history. Even the smallest coin in your pocket has the potential to be something extraordinary. Coin collecting is not just about money, it is about stories, about connections to the past, and about the thrill of holding history in your hand. When a simple penny can transform into a treasure worth hundreds of millions, it reminds us all that the world of numismatics is filled with surprises waiting to be uncovered. So the next time you come across a 1971 Lincoln penny, take a moment to look closely, examine the details, the color, the strike, and consider the possibility that you may be holding something extraordinary in a world where 1 cent can equal $320 million. The magic of coin collecting is alive and well, and it continues to inspire millions across the globe. My dear friends and history lovers, now we go to the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where even the smallest piece of change can tell a story worth millions. Today we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and extraordinary coins in United States history, the Liberty 1 cent from the year 1973 with the D mint mark struck at the Denver Mint. This little coin, which most people would overlook as just Another penny has become one of the most talked about and mysterious treasures in the numismatic community, not only because of its design and history but because certain rare examples are now valued at an astonishing $318 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever associated with American coinage. The story of the Lincoln cent begins long before 1973. It traces back to 1909, when the United States Mint first introduced a 1-cent coin featuring the portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. This was a landmark moment, because it marked the very first time that a real historical figure appeared on a regularly circulating U.S. coin. Lincoln, the 16th president known for leading the nation through the Civil War and abolishing slavery, was chosen as the face of the penny to honor his 100th birthday. The design was powerful and symbolic, and it has remained the longest-running coin design in U.S. history, though the reverse has changed over the years. From 1909 until 1958, the reverse of the Lincoln cent carried the famous wheat ears symbolizing prosperity and growth, but in 1959, to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse was changed to show the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by Frank Gasparo. This design captured the grandeur of the memorial, and if you look closely with a magnifying glass, you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial itself. With this redesign, the Lincoln cent became even more iconic, and the memorial reverse continued until 2008. Now let us focus on the year 1973, and in particular the Denver Mint issues. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of 1-cent coins that year. The total mintage for the 1973 D Lincoln cent was more than 3.5 billion coins, a number so large that you might think these coins could never be rare and never hold great value. After all, how can something produced in the billions be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? The answer lies in the mysteries of numismatics. In the world of coin collecting, value is not always about how many were made, but about how many survive in pristine condition, or how many carry unique errors or varieties that set them apart from the rest. The 1973 D Lincoln cent may have been common in circulation, but very few examples exist today in gem uncirculated condition with their original bright red luster. Intact copper coins like these are particularly prone to tarnishing, spotting, and losing their color over time, which means that coins preserved in mint state 65 red or higher are extremely rare. Collectors and grading services like PCGS and NGC have documented that truly pristine examples of the 1973 D Lincoln cent are sought after and command strong premiums. But the story does not stop at condition, because the 1973 D penny is also tied to a number of fascinating error coins and minting varieties that turn an ordinary 1-cent piece into a one-of-a-kind treasure worth unimaginable sums. Among the most notable varieties are doubled die obverse coins, where inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust show clear doubling caused during the die hubbing process. These doubled dies are highly collectible, and depending on the strength of the doubling can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Then there are off-center strikes, broad strikes, coins struck on clipped planchets, and even coins struck on the wrong planchet altogether, such as a 1-cent design mistakenly struck on a dime planchet. These dramatic mint errors are incredibly rare, and when authenticated by major grading services, they can sell for small fortunes in auctions. The Denver Mint was also known for repunched mint marks. During this period, collectors searched carefully for 1973 D cents where the D mint mark was punched more than once, creating overlapping impressions that stand out under magnification. These repunched mint marks, or RPMs, are not only fascinating to study, but they are also highly prized by collectors who specialized in Lincoln cent varieties. The 1973 D also carries significance because it was produced in the early years of dramatic changes in U.S. coinage policy. The late 1960s and early 1970s were a time of transition. The U.S. Mint had just ended silver coinage for circulating dimes, quarters, and half dollars, moving to clad compositions, and copper was also becoming more expensive, which would eventually lead to the change in 1982 when the Lincoln cent composition was switched from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc. Thus coins like the 1973 Lincoln cent represent one of the last decades of traditional copper cents, giving them historical weight beyond just their design. Now what about the claims of astronomical values reaching $318 million for a single coin? This is where the world of elite coin collecting collides with rarity, history, and prestige in the art world. Masterpieces by Da Vinci, Picasso, or Van Gogh have sold for hundreds of millions because they are unique and irreplaceable. In numismatics, the same principle applies. When a coin exists that is utterly unique, perhaps due to a dramatic minting blunder, an experimental planchet, or a flawless preservation state, it becomes the holy grail for collectors, a one-of-a-kind object that the wealthiest collectors and investors are willing to compete for at almost any price. Stories abound of unique 1973 Lincoln cents that have surfaced in extraordinary condition or with mysterious minting anomalies, coins that were never meant to leave the mint, or coins preserved in museum-like condition, and when such pieces appear in high-profile auctions they take on legendary status. The prestige of owning such a coin is not about its face value of 1 cent, but about owning a tangible piece of American history tied to Abraham Lincoln, to the Denver Mint, and to the very era of dramatic change in U.S. coinage and monetary history. The fascination grows even stronger when we consider the historical context of 1973. America was facing economic challenges, political scandals like Watergate were beginning to unfold, and inflation was becoming a serious concern. Against this backdrop, a humble penny produced at the Denver Mint has managed to outshine the turbulence of its time to emerge as one of the greatest numismatic legends in modern collecting. The fact that a coin struck in the billions can have a single surviving specimen valued at over $300 million is almost unbelievable, yet it serves as a reminder that in numismatics the impossible is always possible. Auction houses have reported that the finest known 1973 Lincoln cents with special errors or flawless condition have brought staggering sums, not just because of the rarity, but because of the story they tell. Wealthy collectors are not simply buying a coin, they are buying history, they are buying exclusivity, and they are buying the bragging rights of owning something that virtually no one else can ever possess, and so the value climbs higher and higher until it reaches heights that astonish the public, like the $318 million valuations tied to unique 1973 Lincoln cents for everyday collectors. The story of the 1973 penny is also inspiring. It shows that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places: jars of change, rolls of coins, inherited collections, or even circulation itself. Sometimes what appears to be a common coin can actually be a rare error, or a high-grade example that has survived against the odds. The thrill of searching, the possibility of discovery, is what keeps the world of coin collecting alive and thriving across generations. The 1973 Lincoln cent is proof that the smallest coin can hold the biggest story. It embodies art, history, economics, politics, and the power of rarity. It transforms from a penny to a priceless treasure when seen through the lens of numismatics. It reminds us all to pay attention to the details, to treasure the things we often overlook, and to believe in the possibility of finding something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places. So the next time you see a 1973 penny with a small D mint mark on it, do not dismiss it too quickly. It could be a piece of history, it could be an error, it could be a gem condition rarity, and in the most extraordinary cases it could be one of the most valuable coins in existence, with a market value that rivals the greatest works of art in human history. And that is the magic of coin collecting. That is the power of the 1973 Liberty 1 cent coin, a coin worth as much as $318 million, and a reminder that treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered.